Hi, and welcome to the MPowered Women, a series conceptualized and presented by the Multiples Private Equity. Focused on profits with purpose under its multiple shift initiative, the company lays emphasis on equity, environment, and empowerment. And through Empowered Women series, the company aims to bring spotlight on gender equity and the implications that it can bring to the table and to organizations if gender equity is truly recognized and practiced. Under the initiative, we will be talking to a lot of accomplished women from multiple portfolio companies. So time for some introductions now. I'm your host, Mitu Samar, founder and CEO of Eminent Strategy Consulting, and a director on boards of Times Internet and Aegon Life. I'm very happy to bring these episodes to you on behalf of Multiples. Today, we are joined by a very successful woman, Anila Ahuja, the co-founder and market head, North and East, Sanctum Wealth. Anila brings with her a very vast experience of about 25 years in financial services industry and wealth management space in particular. She has worked with companies like RBS Group, Standard Chartered Bank, Mashreq Bank, and so on. And in fact, she is an alumnus of Lady Shri Ram College and Jamnalal Bajaj. Welcome to the episode, Anila.
Thank you so much, Mitu. Pleasure to be here.
There's so much to talk about and learn from you because I was just reading up a lot about you before the session. And what really kind of, interested me is your upbringing and your background. So you come from a small town and that too from a family of girls.
That's right.
And we are all talking about, empowered women. So help me understand a little about this whole background. And did you ever feel stereotyped or limited because of this background?
That's a very good question, Mitu. And today I am who I am because of my background. So you're right, we're two sisters. And as we were growing up, the only one thing that we knew that we are all we need. So to answer your question, I've never felt limited or stereotyped. Education for us, good education was a big thing. So whether it meant sort of stepping away from the small town, coming to Delhi, going to LSR, post that, going to Mumbai for my higher education in a class of 120, there were 110 men and 10 girls. Women wouldn't step out to do their MBAs those days. But over a period of time, even when one was competing, and not in the wrong sense, but when you were competing, it's only in hindsight that I would realize, academically, I was top of my class and there were many guys who one has left behind. Even sport, because we were taught to be limitless in many ways while we were growing up, I always just had the confidence to go out and compete, even in sport where physically boys tend to have an advantage, because I never felt any less or lesser of a human being or, limited or stereotyped. That has really helped my journey over the years. So it is so inherent to who I am that even today in a business where, let's say 90% of the clients tend to be men, or I end up sitting in boardrooms where there are mostly men, it's only in hindsight that I realized, there wasn't a woman in there, So it's just, I've felt like an equal always. And you're right, my upbringing has a lot to do with it.
And that's really interesting because, a lot of times, some of us used, pick it up as our limiting factor rather than using it like something which is a part of us and taking it in stride and moving on with it.
That's right.
Having come from another small town, I completely relate and connect to what you're saying.
Perfect.
Similar experience all through that it's all in our mind.
That's correct. That's entirely correct.
So, in fact, what really, while doing my research, got kind of highlighted to my notice is we all talk about women in financial services and their roles and so on. And at Sanctum, 50% of the leadership team is women, like 4 out of 10 leaders are women.
Absolutely.
And that was something very unique is what I felt. So is that by design, by default, or how is it?
Actually, it isn't by design. What is very core at Sanctum is our culture. So a culture that's nurturing, a culture that's safe, not in a psychological sort of way. And it's not a culture that we've built thinking that we are trying to promote gender equality. It's just a culture which makes people more comfortable, whether it's men or women. And the core philosophy always has been that we must get the best person for the job. And because women have so much comfort, it just kind of happened naturally. And not just the management team, our ratio, men to women, 40% women at Sanctum. So financial services, the ratio is much lower. If you look at all India data, the ratio is, I think, in the range of some 25% or something, but we are 40% women. And in fact, recently we participated in a prominent survey, and Sanctum has been rated as the top 50 places for women to work. So it's not by design, because we didn't think there was anything to fix. Gender inequality has never been a thing for us. The good thing is we understand the context of women, and we understand that they could need more support in many ways, which could be obviously because they're natural caregivers to the family. So any support that they may need on that account, we've always been very forthcoming. It's not that there's a policy laid down on any such account, but as a management team, we've just been so open-minded about providing that support whenever women need it from time to time.
And I think that is very important, because even at multiples, that's the kind of culture that the whole organization is also trying to drive, and also in its portfolio companies, that gender equity is something that is a part of a culture more than the policy, and that's very
right.
important.
Absolutely, and that's why multiples and us are together on this journey. One of the reasons.
In fact, I was hearing you in one of your responses, you mentioned that most of the clients that you interact with are men.
Yeah.
And since Sanctum is in the wealth management space, it's quite disappointing, isn't it? As the two women we are talking, that why aren't women participating in such discussion more often? And not that they aren't HNIs or they have lack of wealth. So why do you think such a trend, or do you really observe a shift in the trend?
So yes, that is a trend, and I do observe a shift as well. So as far as the trend is concerned, most women do not want to participate in decision making when it comes to money management. Perhaps, and in fact, we had done a short survey with some of our clients, wives, daughters-in-law, to just understand why is it that they're not involved in decision making. So a lot of them felt that it's a very esoteric subject, finance. It's probably a little difficult to understand. I think it's best left to the men. And that's also because over the years, most of us, if you observe our own families, there has been a little bit of a stereotype around who does what. So men would generally take care of the finances. And perhaps even if women have been encouraged to do it, but at a subliminal level, they just probably feel that this is not for me.
True.
So they do not end up participating. There are quite a few forward-looking clients as well who would tell us that, look, I'm going to check with my wife. I want her to be part of the meeting. Sure enough, if the meeting is going to be for an hour and a half, the spouse would arrive and leave within 15 minutes. So it's not a subject that comes to them naturally in general. But do I see this trend changing? I certainly do. Especially if they're women who've made the money themselves, then you will find them very, very forthcoming. They want to understand finances a lot better. And I've also realized that most women who are starting to manage their own money now, they also tend to be quite curious. So they end up asking lots more questions. And they're also a little embarrassed about it a lot of times. And they say, well, we're asking too many questions. And I tell them, look, I want you to take very, very educated decisions. So no question's a bad question. Ask as many as you can. So in fact, a few years ago, we had also done this program with a partner where we encourage clients to sort of, somehow get their wives and daughters-in-law to come and participate. And so we gave them a little bit of a sense of if they had to big picture be a general manager while managing their investments and money, what are the tools? What are the myths? What is it that they need to understand better so they can make some sense of it? So that program went quite well, actually. And, our endeavor always is to try and encourage more and more women to sort of come in and be part of the decision making. And with one of our clients, very large corporate, they'd invited me to speak to all their on Women's Day to come and speak to the women employees. And again, I just did like a dipstick with all of them. They were all working at the company, and yet their husbands were managing their money. So the whole idea was to sort of encourage them. And I've told them, I gave them a few tips, and I said, well, I'm going to come back after 3 months and just to see how far along the journey you are. So that's due. The next session is now in a few months. Let's see. So because I actually checked with them, they said, no, we haven't seen much progress because Women's Day was back in March. But hopefully I'll go back soon enough and check on what's going on over there.
No, I'm quite certain that slowly and steadily the curiosity is increasing. But yeah, we have some distance to cover.
That's
and in
right.
fact, talking about curiosity, I was reading a lot about you before the conversation, like I mentioned earlier on also. And I read this line that you have said, and I quite liked it, which says that always be learning. Even the experts will tell you that more you know, the more there is a need to learn.
Yeah.
This is so beautifully put, and this is so true as well. So how do what is your take? And in fact, I would request you to also talk about, how learning and continuous learning help women and generally all professionals as a whole
That's right.
evolve and grow.
No. For me, that's at the heart of who I am. So the one thing I've always told myself is that I never want to call myself an expert. One can never be an expert. Throughout one has to learn. So one thing is knowledge, the other thing is understanding. So once you understand and you apply your knowledge, then you kind of take a helicopter view of your own situation and you observe how you did in a particular situation, what could you have done well. So that whole curiosity around applying knowledge, and then how could I have done this better, and a little bit of a self-critical sort of way of looking at things, never being always open-minded about the fact that I don't know everything. So that continuously keeps me curious and sort of on the journey. Second, the world is changing so fast, and for us to stay relevant, it is just so important that again we're continuously learning, and that never stops. And for me, one of the biggest sources of learning has been my experience. So the joy that my job brings to me is the fact that every day I interact with clients who are all wealthy, obviously, and successful. So each one of them, they're running different kinds of businesses. Some could be high-ranking professionals who've done really well for themselves. So the amount I get to absorb in my interactions from them and learn, because again, my curiosity also makes me ask a lot of questions.
True.
And when you're asking a lot of questions, you also need to have good listening skills. So the one thing that I have sort of tried to really work on over the years is good listening skills. And that makes me ask a lot of questions. And, it's such nuggets, such gems that come across from the experiences of clients, who've sort of been successful in their areas of business, that is a huge value add to me. I mean, any opportunity I get, I ask lots of questions and listen.
No, that's truly important, because if we don't keep our listening, a lot of times we feel that it's only by reading, and we learn only by going to colleges or reading. But yeah, learning happens all the time. And like we were discussing earlier, learning can even happen from unwinding and reading a fictional book.
That's true. That's true. To me, people's journeys are so important and such a massive source of learning.
Correct.
Because those are real. Those are real.
Yes. And it doesn't also always have to be very structured, right? It can sometimes
just conversations. Yeah. And there's just so much that you end up picking up about people's life experiences.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that from there, something very interesting that can come out is your overall message that you would want to share with all our listeners, because, your experience is so rich, plus diverse, because like the background that you just now spoke about of having interacted with people of different walks of life.
Right.
So what's the kind of message that you would like to share with women in terms of why is it important to stay in the pipeline first and foremost? How can they take their journey towards leadership, and overall, how to be a more, well balanced human being?
Sure. So, for me, actually, the four things, I call them my personal four C's.
Lovely.
Yeah. So that's something that has worked very well for me. First is curiosity, and we've already spoken about it, right? So always be curious. And it's very cliched and all that, but it works. So that's the first thing. Second thing for me, which has always worked for me, is genuine compassion and authenticity, whether it's as a leader, whether it's as someone who interacts with clients. So you have to care for your people, you have to care for your clients. And those are things that sort of, always stand you in good stead. Third is courage. And courage, again, very often as we're growing up also, we are taught, don't do this, don't do that. A lot of time we place limits on ourselves without even testing our limits. So, I understand the context under which women operate. Obviously, they end up being primary caregivers and there's a lot on their plate besides work. But yet, and my fourth is commitment to succeed. So the moment you commit to yourself that I want to make a success of my life, you will find the courage and you will not place limits on yourself, because the only limits that you place on yourself are the ones you place on yourself. So a lot of it is in the mind. I totally understand the context, like I'm repeating myself over there, but yet the limits are all within us. So, that would be my key message, that, it's in the mind. And if you do commit to succeed, then you can do it.
And I'm going to remember these four C's all my life, myself too, because this is so simply put and so important. And I'm quite certain that all our listeners also found this very, very interesting.
I hope so. I hope I've been able to help in some way.
Certainly. In fact, like we were discussing earlier, these small little inspirational stories need to come out, Anila.
Yeah.
And I'm quite certain this is going to really help some of the women who in their own spaces are finding certain aspects limiting, and the reminder that limitation is only in their own minds, and they are actually limitless.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely correct.
Thank you so much for your time, Anila.
Not at all.
It's wonderful chatting up with you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Mitu. Thank you so much.
And on behalf of Multiples, I also thank all the listeners, and keep watching this space. There is so much more coming along. Thank you so much.
Thank you.